Question 4. The perfection of God. Having considered the divine simplicity, we treat next of God's perfection. Now, because everything insofar as it is perfect is called good, we shall speak first of the divine perfection, second of the divine goodness. Concerning the first, there are 3 points of inquiry. 1, whether God is perfect. 2, whether God is perfect universally, as having in himself the perfections of all things. 3, whether creatures can be said to be like God. Article 1, whether God is perfect. Objection 1, it seems that perfection does not belong to God, for we say a thing is perfect if it is completely made, but it does not befit God to be made, therefore he is not perfect. Objection 2, further, God is the first beginning of things. But the beginnings of things seem to be imperfect, as seed is the beginning of animal and vegetable life, therefore God is imperfect. Objection 3, further, as shown above, question 3, article 4, God's essence is existence, but existence seems most imperfect, since it is most universal and receptive of all modification, therefore God is imperfect. On the contrary, it is written, be you perfect, as also your heavenly Father is perfect, Matthew 5:48. I answer that, as the philosopher relates, some ancient philosophers, namely the Pythagoreans and Leucippus, did not predicate best and most perfect of the first principle. The reason was that the ancient philosophers considered only a material principle, and a material principle is most imperfect, for since matter as such is merely potential, the first material principle must be simply potential and thus most imperfect. Now God is the first principle, not material, but in the order of efficient cause, which must be the most perfect, for just as matter as such is merely potential, an agent as such is in the state of actuality. Hence the first active principle must needs be most actual, and therefore most perfect, for a thing is perfect in proportion to its state of actuality, because we call that perfect which lacks nothing of the mode of its perfection. Reply to objection 1, as Gregory says, though our lips can only stammer, we yet chant the high things of God, for that which is not made is improperly called perfect. Nevertheless, because created things are then called perfect, when from potentiality they are brought into actuality. This word perfect signifies whatever is not wanting in actuality, whether this be by way of perfection or not. Reply to objection 2, the material principle which with us is found to be imperfect cannot be absolutely primal, but must be preceded by something perfect. For seed, though it be the principle of animal life, reproduced through seed, has previous to it the animal or plant from which it came. Because previous to that which is potential must be that which is actual, since potential being can only be reduced into act by some being already actual. Reply to objection 3, existence is the most perfect of all things, for it is compared to all things as that by which they are made actual, for nothing has actuality except so far as it exists. Hence existence is that which actuates all things, even their forms. Therefore it is not compared to other things as the receiver is to the received, but rather as the received to the receiver. When therefore I speak of the existence of man or horse or anything else, existence is considered a formal principle and as something received, and not as that which exists. Article 2, whether the perfections of all things are in God. Objection 1, it seems that the perfections of all things are not in God, for God is simple, as shown above, question 3, article 7, whereas the perfections of things are many and diverse, therefore the perfections of all things are not in God. Objection 3, further, opposites cannot coexist. Now the perfections of things are opposed to each other, for each thing is perfected by its specific difference, but the differences by which genera are divided and species constituted are opposed to each other. Therefore, because opposites cannot coexist in the same subject, it seems that the perfections of all things are not in God. Objection 3, further, a living thing is more perfect than what merely exists, and an intelligent thing than what merely lives. Therefore, life is more perfect than existence, and knowledge than life, but the essence of God is existence itself. Therefore, he has not the perfections of life and knowledge and other similar perfections. On the contrary, Dionysius says that God in his one existence presupposes all things. I answer that all created perfections are in God, hence he is spoken of as universally perfect, because he lacks not, says the commentator, any excellence which may be found in any genus. This may be seen from two considerations. First, because whatever perfection exists in an effect must be found in the effective cause, either in the same formality, if it is a univocal agent, as when man reproduces man, or in a more eminent degree, if it is an equivocal agent, thus in the sun it is likeness of whatever is generated by the sun's power. Now it is plain that the effect pre-exists virtually in the efficient cause, and although to pre-exist in the potentiality of a material cause is to pre-exist in a more imperfect way, since matter as such is imperfect, and an agent as such is perfect, still to pre-exist virtually in the efficient cause is to pre-exist not in a more imperfect, but in a more perfect way, since therefore God is the first effective cause of things. The perfections of all things must pre-exist in God in a more eminent way. Dionysius implies that the same line of argument by saying of God, "It is not that he is this and not that, but that he is all, as the cause of all." Second, from what has already been proved, God is existence itself, of itself subsistent. Consequently, he must contain within himself the whole perfection of being. For it is clear that if some hot thing has not the whole perfection of heat, this is because heat has not participated in its full perfection. But if this heat were self-subsisting, nothing of the virtue of heat would be wanting to it. Since therefore God is subsisting being itself, nothing of the perfection of being can be wanting to him. Now all created perfections are included in the perfection of being, for things are perfect precisely so far as they have being after some fashion. It follows, therefore, that the perfection of no one thing is wanting to God. This line of argument, too, is implied by Dionysius when he says that God exists not in any single mode, but embraces all being within himself, absolutely, without limitation, uniformly, and afterwards he adds that he is the very existence to subsisting things. Reply to objection 1, even as the sun, as Dionysius remarks, while remaining one and shining uniformly, contains within itself first and uniformly the substances of sensible things and many and diverse qualities, a fortiori should all things in a kind of natural unity pre-exist in the cause of all things, and thus things diverse and in themselves opposed to each other pre-exist in God as one without injury to his simplicity. This suffices for the reply to the second objection. Reply to objection 3, the same Dionysius says that although existence is more perfect than life and life than wisdom, if they are considered as distinguished in idea, nevertheless a living thing is more perfect than what merely exists, because living things also exist and intelligent things both exist and live. Although therefore existence does not include life and wisdom, because that which participates in existence need not participate in every mode of existence, nevertheless God's existence includes in itself life and wisdom, because nothing of the perfection of being can be wanting to him who is subsisting being itself. Article 3, whether any creature can be like God. Objection 1, it seems that no creature can be like God, for it is written, Psalm 85:8, there is none among the gods like unto thee, O Lord. But of all creatures the most excellent are those which are called by participation gods, therefore still less can other creatures be said to be like God. Objection 2, further, likeness implies comparison, but there can be no comparison between things in a different genus, therefore neither can there be any likeness. Thus we do not say that sweetness is like whiteness, but no creature is in the same genus as God, since God is no genus, as was shown above, question 3, article 5, therefore no creature is like God. Objection 3, further, we speak of those things as like which agree in form, but nothing can agree with God in form, for save in God alone essence and existence differ, therefore no creature can be like to God. Objection 4, further, among like things there is mutual likeness, for like is like to like. If therefore any creature is like God, God will be like some creature, which is against what is said by Isaiah, to whom have you likened God? Isaiah 40:18. On the contrary, it is written, let us make man to our image and likeness, Genesis 1:26, and when he shall appear, we shall be like to him, 1 John 3:2. I answer that since likeness is based upon agreement or communication in form, it varies according to many modes of communication in form. Some things are said to be like which communicate in the same form according to the same formality and according to the same mode, and these are said to be not merely like but equal in their likeness, as two things equally white are said to be alike in whiteness. And this is the most perfect likeness. In another way, we speak of things as alike which communicate in form according to the same formality, though not according to the same measure, but according to more or less, as something less white is said to be like another thing more white, and this is imperfect likeness. In a third way, some things are said to be alike which communicate in the same form, but not according to the same formality, as we see in non-univocal agents. For since every agent reproduces itself so far as it is an agent, and everything acts according to the manner of its form, the effect must in some way resemble the form of the agent. If therefore the agent is contained in the same species as its effect, there will be a likeness in form between that which makes and that which is made according to the same formality of the species, as man reproduces man. If, however, the agent and its effect are not contained in the same species, there will be a likeness, but not according to the formality of the same species, as things generated by the sun's heat may be in some sort spoken of as like the sun, not as though they received the form of the sun in its specific likeness, but in its generic likeness. Therefore, if there is an agent not contained in any genus, its effect will still more distantly reproduce the form of the agent, not that is so as to participate in the likeness of the agent's form according to the same specific or generic formality, but only according to some sort of analogy, as existence is common to all. In this way, all created things, so far as they are beings, are like God as the first and universal principle of all being. Reply to Objection 1, as Dionysius says, when Holy Writ declares that nothing is like God, it does not mean to deny all likeness to him, for the same things can be like and unlike to God, like according as they imitate him, as far as he, who is not perfectly imitatable, can be imitated, unlike according as they fall short of their cause. Not merely in intensity and remission, but that which is less white falls short of that which is more white, because they are not in agreement specifically or generically. Reply to Objection 2, God is not related to creatures as though belonging to a different genus, but as transcending every genus, and as the principle of all genera. Reply to Objection 3, likeness of creatures to God is not affirmed on account of agreement in form according to the formality of the same genus or species, but solely according to analogy, inasmuch as God is essential being, whereas other things are beings by participation. Reply to Objection 4, although it may be admitted that creatures are in some sort like God, it must nowise be admitted that God is like creatures, because as Dionysius says, a mutual likeness may be found between things of the same order, but not between a cause and that which is caused. For we say that a statue is like a man, but not conversely, so also a creature can be spoken of as in some sort like God, but not that God is like a creature. Question 5. Goodness in general. We next consider goodness. First, goodness in general. Second, the goodness of God. Under the first head, there are 6 points of inquiry. 1. Whether goodness and being are the same. Really. 2. Granted that they differ only in idea, which is prior in thought. 3. Granted that being is prior, whether every being is good. 4. To what cause should goodness be reduced? 5. Whether goodness consists in mode, species, and order. 6. Whether goodness is divided into the virtuous, the useful, and the pleasant. Article 1. Whether goodness differs really from being. Objection 1. It seems that goodness differs really from being, for Boethius says, I perceive that in nature the fact that things are good is one thing, that they are is another, therefore goodness and being really differ. Objection 1. Further, nothing can be its own form, but that is called good which has the form of being, according to the commentary on De Causis. Therefore goodness differs really from being. Objection 3. Further, goodness can be more or less, but being cannot be more or less. Therefore, goodness differs really from being. On the contrary, Augustine says that inasmuch as we exist, we are good. I answer that goodness and being are really the same, and differ only in idea, which is clear from the following argument. The essence of goodness consists in this, that it is in some way desirable. Hence the philosopher says, goodness is what all desire. Now it is clear that a thing is desirable only in so far as it is perfect, for all desire their own perfection, but everything is perfect so far as it is actual. Therefore it is clear that a thing is perfect so far as it exists, for it is existence that makes all things actual, as is clear from the foregoing. Question 3, Article 4, Question 4, Article 1. Hence it is clear that goodness and being are the same really, but goodness presents the aspect of desirableness, which being does not present. Reply to Objection 1. Although goodness and being are the same really, nevertheless, since they differ in thought, they are not predicated of a thing absolutely in the same way, since being properly signifies that something actually is, and actuality properly correlates to potentiality. A thing is, in consequence, said simply to have being, accordingly as it is primarily distinguished from that which is only in potentiality, and this is precisely each thing's substantial being. Hence, by its substantial being, everything is said to have being simply, but by any further actuality, it is said to have being relatively. Thus, to be white implies relative being, for to be white does not take a thing out of simply potential being, because only a thing that actually has being can receive this mode of being. But goodness signifies perfection which is desirable, and consequently of ultimate perfection. Hence that which has ultimate perfection is said to be simply good, but that which has not the ultimate perfection it ought to have. Although in so far it is at all actual, it has some perfection. It is not said to be perfect simply, nor good simply, but only relatively. In this way, therefore, viewed in its primal, i.e. substantial being, a thing is said to be simply and to be good relatively, i.e. in so far as it has being. But viewed in its complete actuality, a thing is said to be relatively and to be good simply. Hence the saying of Boethius, I perceive that in nature the fact that things are good is one thing, and that they are is another, is to be referred to a thing's goodness simply, and having being simply, because regarded in its primal actuality, a thing simply exists, and regarded in its complete actuality, it is good simply. In such sort that even in its primal actuality it is some sort good, and even in this complete actuality it in some sort has being. Reply to Objection 2. Goodness is a form so far as absolute goodness signifies complete actuality. Reply to Objection 3. Again, goodness is spoken of as more or less according to a thing's superadded actuality, for example, as to knowledge or virtue. Article 2. Whether goodness is prior in idea to being. Objection 1. It seems that goodness is prior in idea to being, for names are arranged according to the arrangement of the things signified by the names, but Dionysius assigned the first place among the other names of God to his goodness rather than to his being. Therefore, in idea, goodness is prior to being. Objection 2. Further, that which is the more extensive is prior in idea, but goodness is more extensive than being, because as Dionysius notes, goodness extends to things both existing and non-existing, whereas existence extends to existing things alone. Therefore, goodness is an idea prior to being. Objection 3. Further, what is the more universal is prior in idea, but goodness seems to be more universal than being, since goodness has the aspect of desirable, whereas to some non-existence is desirable, for it is said of Judas, if it were better for him if that man had not been born, Matthew 26:24. Therefore, in idea, goodness is prior to being. Objection 4. Further, not only is existence desirable, but life, knowledge, and many other things besides. Thus it seems that existence is a particular appetible, and goodness a universal appetible. Therefore, absolutely, goodness is prior in idea to being. On the contrary, it is said by Aristotle that the first of created things is being. I answer that in idea, being is prior to goodness, for the meaning signified by the name of a thing is that which the mind conceives of the thing and intends by the word that stands for it. Therefore, that is prior in idea which is first conceived by the intellect. Now, the first thing conceived by the intellect is being, because everything is knowable only inasmuch as it is in actuality. Hence, being is the proper object of the intellect, and is primarily intelligible, as sound is that which is primarily audible. Therefore, in idea, being is prior to goodness. Reply to Objection 1. Dionysius discusses the divine names as implying some causal relation in God, for we name God, as he says, from creatures, as a cause from its effects. But goodness, since it has the aspect of desirable, implies the idea of a final cause, the causality of which is first among causes, since an agent does not act except for some end, and by an agent matter is moved to its form. Hence the end is called the cause of causes. Thus goodness as a cause is prior to being, as is the end to the form. Therefore, among the names signifying the divine causality, goodness precedes being. Again, according to the Platonists, who through not distinguishing primary matter from privation, said that matter was non-being, goodness is more extensively participated than being, for primary matter participates in goodness as tending to it, for all seek their like, but it does not participate in being, since it is presumed to be non-being. Therefore, Dionysius says that goodness extends to non-existence. Reply to Objection 2. The same solution is applied to this objection, or it may be said that goodness extends to existing and non-existing things, not so far as it can be predicated of them, but so far as it can cause them. If indeed by non-existence we understand not simply those things which do not exist, but those which are potential and not actual. For goodness has the aspect of the end, in which not only actual things find their completion, but also towards which tends even those things which are not actual, but merely potential. Now, being implies the habitude of a formal cause only, either inherent or exemplar, and its causality does not extend save to those things which are actual. Reply to Objection 3. Non-being is desirable not of itself, but only relatively, i.e. inasmuch as the removal of an evil, which can only be removed by non-being, is desirable. Now, the removal of an evil cannot be desirable, except so far as the evil deprives a thing of some being. Therefore, being is desirable of itself, and non-being only relatively, inasmuch as one seeks some mode of being of which one cannot bear to be deprived. Thus, even non-being can be spoken of as relatively good. Reply to Objection 4. Life, wisdom, and the like are desirable only so far as they are actual. Hence, in each one of them, some sort of being is desired, and thus nothing can be desired except being, and consequently nothing is good except being.